If there is anything I've learned in the past few years, it's to scrutinize every claim that Joe Biden makes, even if it seems inconsequential. Because if Biden says he did something, chances are he didn't.
When I left the Senate, I was able to convince Strom Thurmond to vote for the Voting Rights Act. Strom Thurmond.
So first of all, Joe Biden left the Senate in 2009. Strom Thurmond died in 2003. Second, the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965, which is 7 years before Biden was elected to office. Or maybe Biden spoke to Strom Thurmond's Force Ghost, I don't know. And you may remember this doozy back in September about visiting Ground Zero the day after 9/11.
Ground Zero in New York. And I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. It looked so devastating because from where you could stand.
Except that is a lie. Joe Biden was not at Ground Zero the day after September 11th because he was giving a speech on the floor of the Senate in Washington, D.C. And yes, he eventually visited the site, but it was nearly a week and a half after the attacks.
I remember spending time at the, going to the Tree of Life Synagogue, speaking with them. It just is amazing these things are happening.
What's actually amazing is that Biden consistently remembers spending time at places he's never actually visited and claiming accomplishments that never happened.
I've spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has. 68 hours alone with just he and I and an interpreter. Traveled 17,000 miles with him here and in China.
No, he didn't. Biden has told this lie so many times that back in November 2022, the Washington Post fact checker had to give Biden a bottomless Pinocchio. There was no evidence that Biden traveled that much with Xi, the president of China. And even if we added up the miles Biden flew to see Xi, it still did not total 17,000 miles. The White House could not offer an explanation for that number either. But it's noteworthy because despite our fact check and a White House admission that Biden's line of traveling with Xi was not accurate with this comment, Biden had made the claim 20 times during his presidency. And since that fact check, Biden has made this claim another 12 times. Because he's a pathological liar.
On the Tibetan plateau, he turned to me and he asked me, he said, "Can you define America for me?" And I was deadly earnest. I said, "Yes. In one word, possibilities."
When Biden says, "I'm being deadly earnest," that means he's lying. And this time is no exception, because according to his itinerary and contemporaneous reporting, there is no mention of Joe Biden ever visiting the foothills of the Himalayas, let alone being there with Xi Jinping. And for the record, the closest Biden has ever been to there was in Chengdu, which is approximately 450 miles from the eastern point of the Himalayan mountains.
After every mass shooting, we hear a simple message. The same message all over the country. And I've been to every mass shooting. Do something.
Joe Biden has been to every mass shooting? I guess that would explain why he hasn't had time to go to East Palestine.
Since the tragedy in Sandy Hook, and I remember being there. I remember that how I met with every one of the parents who were there.
Now, it took me a couple of days, but it eventually occurred to me that since Joe Biden lies about everything else, chances are he probably lied about going to Sandy Hook. So I decided to dig a little deeper. Here's Biden making a similar claim back in December 2022.
But all of you at the time, and I spent several days up in Sandy Hook and then went back. At the time, it was astounding to see.
So Biden claims that he went to Sandy Hook and spent several days there at the time. But what does at the time mean? Within days, weeks, months, a year? Well, according to the official White House schedule, for the entire year after the shooting, Joe Biden did not travel to Sandy Hook or to Newtown. Biden did, however, attend a conference on gun violence months later at Western Connecticut State University in Danbury.
I had a grandpop named Ambrose Finnegan. He used to say,
He used to say, what the hell's so funny about that?
I bet them that you would talk about your grandfather.
I love my grandfather.
But Joe Biden laughing it up and telling stories about his grandpop at a conference in Danbury, which is several miles away from Sandy Hook, is not actually going to Sandy Hook. That's like saying you vacationed in New York City when you actually went to Newark, New Jersey. Not remotely the same. And yet, Joe Biden remembers being at Sandy Hook, despite the fact that to this day, Joe Biden has never actually been to Sandy Hook. So the question is, will the fact checkers ever get around to calling him out on it? I think you know the answer to that one. And speaking of pathological liars, this is Jamaal Bowman, the representative from New York's 16th Congressional District. On September 30th, 2023, House Democrats were attempting to delay a vote on a continuing resolution to fund a government ahead of a midnight deadline. And at the same time, Representative Bowman pulled a fire alarm at the Cannon House office building, prompting a floor-by-floor evacuation. And the timing was suspicious. I mean, what better way to delay House proceedings than by pulling a fire alarm? Which would be weird, because I have been told that attempting to interrupt congressional proceedings was a crime and a threat to democracy, for which there are serious penalties. Just ask the hundreds of people who got jail time simply for walking around the interior of the Capitol building. But don't worry, none of that's going to happen to Representative Bowman because you know why. Besides, Jamaal has an excuse. Bowman released a statement addressing the incident. I want to personally clear up confusion surrounding today's events. Today, as I was rushing to make a vote, I came to a door that is usually open for votes, but today would not open. I am embarrassed to admit that I activated the fire alarm, mistakenly thinking that it would open the door. I regret this and sincerely apologize for any confusion this caused. And on cue, Democrats came to Bowman's defense.
I mean, listen, I think if you actually do see some of the photos of the signs, I think there's something to be said about the government's about to shut down. There's a vote clock that's going down. The exits that are normally open in that building were suddenly closed.
Oh, I see. The doors were suddenly closed. It was a conspiracy. At least she didn't blame it on systemic racism. Yet. But actually, there was a plausible explanation as to why that exit was closed. Here's Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Hi everyone, we're at the infamous door where Jamaal Bowman claims he had to pull a fire alarm to get out. Now these doors are open on weekdays. Every member of Congress knows that, everybody that works here knows that. But on Saturdays and Sundays, they are locked and only certain doors are open on Saturdays and Sundays. Now come on over here. This right here is a fire alarm. Nowhere does it say, pull the fire alarm to open the exit door.
Now, of course, the narrative that Bowman pulled a fire alarm to delay the vote is a lot more credible than, I didn't know the fire alarm would activate the fire alarm. But leftist Twitter, X whatever, went into full damage control mode. Okay, this sign is genuinely confusing. How? It says, emergency exit only. And rushing to a vote is not remotely an emergency. Also, it says, push until alarm sounds. Door will unlock in 30 seconds. So how was that confusing in any way? Bowman was trying to walk from the Cannon building to the Capitol building to vote. Unusually, the Cannon exit he went to wouldn't open and had this confusing sign on it. He thought it was saying that you had to press the alarm to get out. This all makes sense. What am I missing? What Matt Bruenig is missing is intelligence. As you can see, it's very clear that at that moment, it was not to be used as an exit. Furthermore, you might notice that Representative Bowman removed the signs from the door and is holding them in his hand. What's that about? Bowman also states, I also met after the vote with the Sergeant-at-Arms and the Capitol Police at their request and explained what had happened.
You know, I don't know why this has gotten so much attention. I was literally just in a rush to go vote, man. That's all it was.
Are you afraid of any repercussions, either from leadership or from legally from Capitol Police?
I mean, listen, I take responsibility for what I did, you know, but like I said, I was in a rush to go vote, and, you know, the investigation will sort everything else out.
He's taking responsibility for it, only because he got caught. Taking actual responsibility would have called for him to stay at the entrance and notify the Capitol Police of his mistake. Instead, he ran away and didn't speak to authorities until hours later, and only after they called on him during their investigation. Because he probably didn't think that there were cameras there, and he probably didn't think he'd get caught. Now, there have been calls for him to be expelled over the incident, and that's unlikely to happen, because again, you know why.
They're filing a motion to expel a member who, in a moment of panic, was trying to escape a vestibule. Give me a break.
Oh, I see. He was trapped there and trying to escape. And for some reason, Bowman was the only one out of the nearly 200 members of Congress that work in the building that had any issues. Makes sense to me. What's your problem? Now, if an investigation proves that he did do it on purpose, he'll likely lose his committee seats and he'll get censured. I mean, let's face it, you shouldn't be on the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology if you don't know how a fire alarm works. And I should point out that in a former life, Jamaal Bowman served as a principal of a public middle school. So I refuse to believe his excuse that he mistakenly pulled a fire alarm, because it's insulting.
You know, I don't know why this has gotten so much attention. I was literally just in a rush to go vote, man. That's all it was.
It's gotten so much attention because either A, Jamaal Bowman is lying, which means that he should resign from Congress, or B, he actually thought that pulling the fire alarm wouldn't sound the fire alarm, which means that Jamaal Bowman is too stupid to serve in Congress. Anyway, that's it for now. Follow me on X at Don't Walk Run, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. If there is next time.